Hey guys, hope you are all doing well today. So we have a matchup between the forces of Vampire Coast going up against the High Elves. The High Elves are being commanded by Geese Howard or Zootron Smith, and the Vampire Coast is being commanded by Moore. This battle took place in a recent tournament that I hosted called Showdown of the Lords, and it's basically before each battle, each player gets assigned one random lord. And they have two rerolls to, get another lord if they choose so, if they don't like their current lord pick, but they must take their final reroll. I'm actually holding the second season of this tournament soon. I don't know when I'm going to upload this video actually, so it will probably be after the tournament, but I'm holding the second season on September 11th, well, the first qualifier for the second season. So if you want to catch more qualifiers, just join my Discord, linked in the description, and you should be able to check out the tournament. Anyways, in this battle, Moore was assigned Count Noctilus, and Zootron was given, let's see, over here, Zootron was given the Archmage of Life, so both very, very solid picks for their respective factions. So let's go into the vampire counts first. We have a front line of standard zombie pirate deckhand mobs, backed up by 2 units of bombers and 1 unit of handguns. We have some pole arms in the back to secure the back lines, and scurvy dogs along the flanks to, screen out any of the mobility of the High Elves. We have, of course, Count Noctilus coming in with, seems like only Invocation and also Wraithstorm. In the skies, we have a mighty Vampire Coast Air Force. We have double Deathshriek Terrorgheists forming a powerful gooning squad, 2 units of deck droppers with handguns, and 1 unit of Fellbats. So overall, a pretty powerful Vampire Coast army. Let's see. Does Count Noctilus? I believe he does come with his... Does he come with summons? Of course he does have the lore of vampires, so that comes with summons, but he did not, I don't believe, take the summons from the lore of vampire. I'm not sure. I don't play Vampire Coast. I actually don't have the DLC, so I may be a bit confused about like summoning and whatnot, but I do think Vampire Coast comes with a couple summoning capabilities. So for the High Elves, we have a front line of spearmen along the lines, yes, all spearmen backed up by a couple units of archers, 2 of which are Lothern Seaguard, and the others are just standard archers. You don't really need much armor piercing in this battle, since most of the Vampire Coast army doesn't have much armor at all. We have, of course, the Archmage of Life coming in with Regrowth and Earthblood, also having the Armor of Stars giving stock and Unspottable, and the Book of Hoeth giving some additional power reserves. And then we are going all out on the Narnia build. We have 4 units of the War Lions of Krace, one of which are the Rahagara's Pride. So yeah, we're going all out with the Narnia. The Lions charge into these flanks of the zombie pirate deckhand mobs. Definitely going to be doing quite a bit of damage since their anti-infantry bonuses are pretty substantial. Definitely a great pick here. Will be causing chaos among the lines of the Vampire Coast, but they have to watch out for those deck droppers along with those handgunners. We have a double noble on chariot actually. So we have 3 chariots on the High Elf army. Not sure what I think of this. Crabs would make quick work. The crabs and Rotting Leviathan would make quick work of the chariots, and the High Elves are notorious for being vulnerable to heavily armored units, and so chariots are really not the best way to combat this, but in this case they won't really, they're not too much of a hindrance since there aren't too many armored units in the Vampire Coast army. Anyways, let's get started with the battle. So as you can see, the War Lions already getting some great charges into the zombie pirate deckhand mobs, but they are going to be taking quite a bit of fire from these deck droppers with handguns, so they might want to disengage quickly and potentially get those archers firing into the Vampire Coast Air Force. Of course, all the undead units of the Vampire Coast are unbreakable, so even though they did quite a bit of damage to these zombie pirate deckhand mobs, and they are crumbling, it will take a while for them to be completely knocked out of the fight, just due to the fact that crumbling is such a slow mechanic. The chariots diving in to do some decent frontline damage, but you know, the war lines are actually staying in battle for maybe a bit too long. You can see on the left flank, Bombers doing a decent job of shutting down the war lines. In the middle, they're probably, the middle war lines are probably going to be taking fire from these handguns once they get unobstructed. In the back, we have a goon attempt from the double Detrick Terrorgheists attempting to get down on one of the nobles, but consistent fire from those archers manages to do a ton of damage to the Terrorgheists, one of which does get an invocation to try and reverse some of the damage. Unfortunately, 2 units of the Narnia war lines are being routed off the field. They might recover, but that is a huge blow to the mobility of the High Elves. And now we have a huge engagement coming in for the High Elves. 2 nobles and the Archmage fighting Count Noctulus, and Count Noctulus is not doing any damage at all. He's taking some arrow fire as well, actually, and so the Vampire Coast really has to watch out as to not lose their leadership. Now he gets rear charged by a couple spearmen, yeah, so Vampire Coast really has to be careful of losing their leadership, but the rest of the battle is going relatively well for Coast. They have managed to penetrate and shut down a lot of the archers in the back line with those zombie pirate deckhand mobs, and a few of them are crumbling, but again, such a slow mechanic, really not doing the most damage. Coast is definitely getting decent value for their zombie pirate deckhand mobs. And in the back, the final unit of the war line seems like all the other, actually there's still 1 unit of war lines left. The Rahagara's Pride doing a decent job of hopping on top of these handguns and preventing them from firing. So we had a bombardment spell from Count Noctis. What is it called again? Wraith Storm. So we had a Wraith Storm go down, I believe, on the Archmage of Life, not doing the most damage. High Elf Chariots are notoriously difficult to kill, especially those nobles, so the Coast really has to start getting some firepower into those beefy dudes. The handgunners are currently crumbling, and take a huge charge from the triple chariots along with the war lines will probably knock them out of the fight. The one thing looking good still for the Vampire Coast is the fact that both Terrorgheists are still healthy. Let's see, perhaps another gooning attempt coming down on the Archmage of Life, but they will be surrounded by the double noble. The nobles do only have an anti-infantry bonus, so they might take a while to take down those Terrorgheists, but they are fast enough to, avoid those unfavorable engagements. The deck droppers doing consistent damage, 4 kills, oh, is it 4? So 4 and 0 kills, so not doing the most damage actually, but they do still have a decent amount of their ammunition left, which they can use wisely. And it seems like the Archmage of Life has been successfully gooned out by the double Detrick Terrorgheists. That is very, very essential for the Vampire Coast to make sure that the High Elf leadership does get routed from the field, since I don't really see too many options for shutting down the double noble. Yeah, they do have 2 Terrorgheists left, but I don't really see too many options for shutting down the double noble. They're just so healthy and so tough to kill. The only chance that Vampire Coast would have in this battle is to knock out the Archmage of Life once and for all. Fortunately, the deck droppers with handguns are getting a little preoccupied by some archer fire and will have to divert their attention, leaving the nobles to just wreak havoc on the remainder of the Vampire Coast army. The Archmage of Life does get gooned out once again from the Terrorgheists, but they are getting somewhat low on HP and leadership, and so they might be retreating from the field very, very soon. Still have some scurvy dogs left, so the Vampire Coast has not lost all their mobility like the High Elves have. Well, chariots I'd consider mobility, so either side still has a little bit of mobility left to try and dominate the battlefield, but I really don't think scurvy dogs will fare the best against even standard units of archers. We'll see. As a charge comes in, will they be able to kill off this unit of archers? Potentially. I think they will, but like if they go up against Lothar and Seaguard or something, they'll probably lose. So, Deathstreak Terrorgheists attempting to goon out this noble, but of course they are just so beefy, so tough to take down that even two dedicated gooning units may take a while to take down this great noble. Second noble going in for a rear charge, along with some Lothar and Seaguard, who of course do have spears alongside of their foes, to try and take down these Terrorgheists once and for all. We do have some bombers left on the field. Unfortunately, the High Elf player did forget to route them completely off the field, but they are crumbling and will probably be dying very soon. But they did not before getting some very good shots into the Lothar and Seaguard and routing them from the field. How these Deathstreak Terrorgheists are not crumbling already, I'm not sure. They do have a decent amount of HP left, but they have just taken a hammering from the double nobles. And one noble is actually routing, being escorted off by those scurvy dogs, so he probably will not be returning to the fight as he does shatter, and the rest of the High Elf army does retreat from army losses. So a pretty good battle on both sides. It definitely seemed initially that the High Elves were getting some decent engagements with those war lines, but unfortunately leaving them out too long in melee did prove to be their death. And let's continue as we go into the end screen and examine how each unit did. So for the Vampire Coast, seems like no unit really did excel in this battle. We had, of course, the Scurvy Dogs that did do quite a bit of damage. We have 101 kills on one, 0 kills on the other, but 101 kills is much more than you can expect from one unit of Scurvy Dogs going against the elite High Elves. So great usage of those Scurvy Dogs, and the rest of the army generally pulled their weight. There weren't really any units that, you know, stood out for doing a crazy amount of damage. Of course, the Terrorgheists were key in winning those engagements against the nobles along with the Archmage of Life, but other than that, nothing super impressive from any of the units. The bombers, of course, you can always expect to get many kills from them, since they are just so powerful at mowing down groups of infantry, especially the High Elves, whose like spearmen are heavily grouped together. And on the High Elf side of things, similarly, we have the war lines doing a ton of damage, similar to those Scurvy Dogs. They did a ton of damage, but I feel like it wasn't really to the right units. Initially, a lot of them got stuck up on Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs, and that's probably where they got the most kills, and so a lot of these kill numbers might be exaggerated due to the fact that they were really just fighting chaff units rather than the bombers and handguns that they would have ideally wanted to fight. Rest of the army, we have one unit of Lothar and Seaguard doing relatively well. I feel like the archers were compromised relatively early in the battle. Just wasn't a lot of infantry for the High Elves to secure 5 units of archers, so that may be a mistake. But of course, war lines do have a bit of mass themselves. They could have protected the back line, but 2 units were routed from the battle pretty quickly. So I think the biggest thing for the High Elves were losing those 2 units of the war lines so quickly from the battle. They did have some favorable initial engagements, especially when the double Deathstreak Terrorgheists tried to goon out the Archmage of Life. They did take a ton of damage themselves, while the High Elves really didn't take any damage from that engagement. So really, I think it would be ill-favored engagements from those war lines, along with the compromised backline of archers that really doomed the High Elves. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this battle. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I will see you guys in the next one.